Hey everyone, we're back. Rip City Real Talk. Anthony Blaylock, Craig Moshko. This way, the camera's all backwards. It always throws me off.
Yeah.
But we're here. We took some time off, right? We're kind of doing the whole week to week and a half, 2 weeks potentially type of deals. Just it's kind of not a very exciting season. As we just kind of get back on board with the full on tank mode. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, man, how are you?
Excellent. What a crazy day just in the sports world in general. It hasn't been exciting in Blazerland because the tank is back on. But today, the Russell Wilson trade went down, or yesterday, I think it was today actually, the Russell Wilson. Oh my gosh. And then Aaron Rodgers, and they tagged, and they tagged Devontae. It's just been wild for you. You get to run it back.
Oh, this is very stressful offseason. I think people remember if they followed us long enough. I went to the Packers game last year, flew in for the Bears game on Sunday night because I wasn't sure that Rodgers and Adams were going to come back. So I got to go
Yeah.
see them before they suck.
Yeah.
No, we're good at least for one more year. The report came out that Rodgers signed the 4-year deal. He came out and said that those numbers were inaccurate, but he'll definitely be back next
Mhm.
year. Do with that as you will. But Devontae's back. Rodgers is back. We have no money, so who knows? But
Yeah. It'd be
yeah, it's
nice.
an exciting time to be a Packer fan. Not such an exciting time
Yeah.
if you're a Seattle Seahawk fan. And we get to hear all about that being in the Pacific Northwest. Russell
Yeah.
Wilson gone, just traded away like he was nothing. Bobby Wagner didn't even get traded, just cut
Yeah.
the defensive franchise cornerstone, just gone,
Yeah.
non-guaranteed. So that
It's
was
weird.
him.
It's gonna be
Interesting
weird.
stuff.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that look, if Russell Wilson is not happy in Seattle and he's making himself known to not be happy, you do have to trade him, and I think it's a decent package. You're obviously never going to get equal value to a franchise quarterback in the NFL. But a lot of people today were drawing parallels to Damian Lillard because the Seahawks are owned by Jody and Allen, and it's a similar situation where it's like superstar player hasn't had a lot of help. Obviously, Russell Wilson won a title in 2013, but that's kind of a different story than the Blazers have had under Dame's era. But did you draw any comparisons there, or was it just kind of nonchalant?
A lot of people tried to make the comparison
Yeah,
just because the Jody Allen and the
right.
stuff involved with that. I don't think there's any comparisons. Did I just lose baby Dame?
I
Little
think you
Dame?
did. I think Dame
Yeah.
committed to
See, he
Denver.
hates these conversations. He's so sick and tired. He's so
He
sick and
does.
tired of the trade Dame stuff.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
little Dame just fell off my ledge again. That's 2 pods in a row. He's sick of our conversations about this.
Ugh.
Uh, So no, man. I listen. Russell Wilson spent about the same amount of time that Dame has spent here. I think a little
Mhm.
bit, about what 9 years, little
Yeah.
more for Dame, I believe. We're pretty close, but he legit wasn't happy, right? He publicly, I mean, he denied it in public, like
Yeah.
Dame has,
He ran it back.
granted. But there was a lot of stuff that started to come out where he wasn't thrilled. I don't think you would move him if he wasn't happy to be there. They haven't
Mhm.
had success, which to be fair, Dame has had a lot of success up until this season. Whereas the Seattle Seahawks haven't really in the last couple of years. They've been a
Yeah.
mid-tier team. So no, I don't think that you can really draw the same comparison. Dame
Mhm.
consistently comes out and denies, talks about being in Portland, wants to be in Portland. I think the level of success and that level of where those two are for each respective franchise,
Mhm.
you know, that's the perspective that people are trying to take with it. That it's the same thing. While they're both getting into the backside of their career, what can you get back for them? Blah blah blah. But no, I don't think it's comparable in the sense of where those two players were at emotionally, where they were at with the team, and quite frankly, the success of the team. This year's kind of been a crapshoot, but Dame has been injured. We've had a lot of other stuff going on, so
Yeah, and the NBA has more player empowerment than the NFL does, which is interesting
mhm.
because in the NFL, if a quarterback demands something and he's not under contract, especially a long-term contract, because they're going to have to rework Russell Wilson's deal. Aaron Rodgers is under this short-term thing where he's getting different deals every year. It's not the same player empowerment. But Dame has stayed and committed loyal to Portland over and over again, especially the last year and a half. I think it's sort of a moot point until he says he wants out, which he's never done. And I think Russell Wilson, like you said, leaned on it hard last summer. He was saying he wanted out, and then he backtracked a little bit, but he all but said, "I want out of here."
Yeah, it was crazy because really last year was all about him and Rogers and the off-season stuff, and more so
Mhm.
Rogers. I think had more of the drama out in
Mhm.
the public, but Russell was secretly right there. And I know Denver kind of came out and said that, oh, we hadn't had any talks with Green Bay, blah, blah, blah. But it's just ironic that it happened right after Rodgers announces that he's
Yeah,
coming back. They're like,
that
okay,
was weird.
Wilson. So,
I agree.
but I'm happy for. I mean, it sucks for you. You being a Raiders fan now. You got to
Yeah.
deal with. You got to deal
So
with Herbert, Russell Wilson, and Mahomes on a 6-game-a-year basis.
we play them 6 times a year, and then we also have Derek Carr under the last year of his deal, and we're probably going to re-up him for $40 million a year for the next 4 years. So, yeah, it's great. I love it very much. I love being a Raider fan. It's fun. This is fun. This is fun.
Well, speaking of being a Raider fan and Seattle having an opening now, I've heard a lot of talk. Everybody here in the Pacific Northwest is knows Marcus Mariota's name. I'm sure. Do you think there's any oomph for him going up to Seattle? Do you think they decide to go with Drew Lock or get a rookie, or do you think they make another move and sign somebody in an offseason to compete? Mainly Marcus Mariota.
I actually know Drew Lock is really bad because I have eyeballs and I've seen him play. So I would probably try to get Marcus. I think another one that I heard was Gardner Minshew could come in. They could trade for him. He's got Washington State ties, which I know is across the state of Washington from Seattle, but he still has Pacific Northwest ties. So I could see Marcus. I could see Gardner Minshew. I do think they should bring in some veteran to compete for that job because this is a really weak quarterback draft. And even though Seattle has a lot of capital, I could see them doing a gap year tank like the Blazers are doing right now, where they literally try to bottom out for a top 5 pick. It's a lot more effective in the NFL, but it's also a lot harder sell to your fans in the NFL because the NFL is such a diehard sport. It's even more diehard than the NBA is, I feel like. And I could see them doing a gap year, but I think they'll trade for Marcus. He's under a really cheap contract, or he's a free agent. I can't remember which. Oakland reworked his deal, or Vegas reworked his deal last year. So, or Gardner Minshew, I think, is a great option.
Yeah, no, lots going on with the Pacific Northwest sports world. This kind of found it interesting. Mariota's name's come up a lot. He can come back and be. I mean, I know it's Seattle, not technically Oregon, but
still
Pacific Northwest, and a lot of fans up here. If you're a Blazers fan, you're probably a Seahawk fan, and if that's the case, then I think you would dig having Marcus Mariota be the quarterback you get to watch on a weekly basis. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff. But enough of Russell Wilson. The only reason I brought that up realistically was to kind of talk about the Dame stuff, because the comparisons were drawn about the two, but the reason these comparisons continue to come up is because the trade Dame stuff. And about a week and a half ago now, I don't remember the exact timeline, but Blazers Edge Dave came out. He put out the trade Dame, potential trade Dame article, and it drew a lot of just backlash from fans. I mean, nothing's ever bad is gonna ever happen to Blazers Edge. Those guys are great at what they do, and they'll be just fine. But for a minute there's a lot of people that just weren't sure about the article. You can deny it all you want, but I've talked to you in person outside this pod. You've secretly been not so against the trade Dame thing.
Yeah.
I want to hear your take on that. Yeah. So if we were to, first off, we'll start with this. Do you think we should trade Dame? Why? And then what do you think you could get back at this point that would help the team?
Yeah.
And kind of just explain your thoughts on that.
I definitely, first of all, we've had Dave on the podcast. We had him on last August before the season, or October before the season started. Dave is very gracious. He is such a good person. And I didn't feel like the backlash was warranted because Blazers Edge, their job is to, from a fan perspective, give different out of the box answers. Basically what he said was we should trade Dame for multiple reasons. Number one, it would be a big favor to Dame because this team is tanking right now and they're not going to be ready to compete for a championship. One of the things that I've said is I understand Dame's loyalty to Portland and I respect that. I think we've defended him over Clyde Drexler as the best Blazer of all time over the next 2 to 3 years. But if he's actually wanting to compete for a championship, which is something he needs on his resume to be a Hall of Fame player, I think, it would be respectful to try to get him to the right situation. If the Blazers are going to tank, it makes sense to move on from Dame and get the most you can right now and try to get, I understand this is a really bad comparison, but try to get the Pelicans type package where they got Zion and they built around Ingram and then obviously Lonzo walked. But, I think Detroit, Cade Cunningham is a top-notch player to build around. Luka Doncic came to Dallas in a gap year mini tank, kind of like the Blazers are doing now. So what I'm saying is it's hard to find those players. I know it's difficult, but the more first round picks you have and the more chances at a lottery you have, the more likely you are to get an A plus 21, 22-year-old player to build around. And that's what the Blazers are going to need. I don't think Dame's going to get a championship here. So that's the case. And I do understand the backlash a little bit, but not really, because Blazers Edge and podcasts and Blazer, like right now, we're bored. We're looking for content. And so in order to drum up that content, sometimes you have to take a zag where there's everybody else is zigging. And so I mean, what did you think? Did you think the backlash was warranted to that article?
Not the kind of backlash they got necessarily. I'm completely anti-trade Dame. I'm on the opposite spectrum of that. So you all can get mad. God, the camera. No, this way. You can be mad at him.
It's fine.
That was terrible. You can all be mad at Craig here, but no, seriously. I mean, I understand. I understand the flip side of it. Like, I get trying to get picks while you can for Dame, because the longer he stays a Blazer, the next 3-4 years, that dwindles significantly. So it really kind of comes down to whether or not you are completely ready to hand the keys over to Anthony Simons, move on from Dame, hope that you land, hope you get the Pelicans pick for one, hope that this pick pans out to be something. Anthony's not ready to lead this team into the playoffs. So the next year, 2 years or so, you continue to ideally get lowered lottery picks, and then whatever you get back from a Dame trade, which is, in my opinion, at least 2 firsts. And then you kind of play around, you completely revamp with a bunch of good picks and see where you are in a few years. It works out for some teams. It's Cleveland. I mean, it's worked out for Cleveland. That's a good example where they've gotten good young players, Mobley, Garland.
Mobley's great.
Really, Sexton's been fine. But then you could have the Magic scenario where it hasn't paid out, or the Detroit scenario where, Kate Cunningham looks like the real deal, but let's be frank, they haven't really added anything else around him. Killian and some of these guys. You could have the Oklahoma City. What have they done? Polanski? I mean, it's like
Pokusevski?
Yep.
I love Poku.
I'm just, I mean, there's multiple sides that each one of these doesn't always work out. And for me, when you're in a small market franchise like you are in Portland, it's really tough to sell me on getting rid of a superstar player that really has probably 3 good years left. The good years, like can play at a level where he could get you to a championship. Now, he still needs a lot of help. I mean, that's up to the franchise to get him another star. It's really hard to win alone anymore in this league. Kawhi kind of did it in Toronto, but I mean, that's really the only example you could think of, unless you count Lowry as like the second piece. But I really think you need to focus on building around Dame and not looking to trade him. And then maybe 2-3 years from now, if it really hasn't worked out and you've done everything you can, you get him over to a team that's still like in the midst of a playoff runs year after year after year, and hope you get a first back for that and move on. But I don't know. That's just where my perspective is.
I look at it kind of like the Chris Paul situation. He goes to the Suns. They had a decent young core. He elevated that team a ton. He is still a huge injury liability, right? And that's the thing about Chris Paul that's always, I mean, he's always been great when he's healthy, but then when he gets hurt, it can derail his team. But I think Dame could be something similar where he's 35 and he could get traded to a ready to contend team. I'm not saying we should trade Dame right now, and I'll never be like 100% on board with that. I just think the backlash was way over exaggerated, and I mean, like local market people are not clamoring to trade Dame, but I do think that we're just at this point we are waiting for that to happen at some point, because this tank has been kind of rough so far. If these 2 picks convey, which we'll talk about that in a little bit, if these 2 picks convey, it's going to be huge for this tank gap year. And I think Dame could compete relatively quickly. I do think his game is going to age okay until he's 36 or 37, and then it's just going to be probably awful, but we'll see.
And that's fair. I still think Dame's going to be the best Blazer of all time, and if he stays here. We've had that discussion recently. And I still think even if he doesn't get a championship, he's a Hall of Fame player. I mean, just scoring alone, assist numbers alone, threes alone. I mean, he's going to get with the statistics. I mean, Carmelo Anthony's a bona fide Hall of Famer, and he hasn't really had any playoff success. So I think you could say the same thing about what Dame could be, even if he doesn't win a title. But I get that's the goal. Contract is a little rough to work with naturally, but if you can get another guy in here and then some of these picks pan out to be another young player that you can really work well with, I mean, the sky's the limit, and you keep that window open for another 3 years and see what happens. That's just where I see it. But
Yeah.
you're right. The backlash was unnecessary. I mean, this year, the tank year. I mean, everybody's got all sorts of just takes and negativity. No more Stotts, right? No more CJ. A lot of stuff has happened to really drive the gears in people's heads to start thinking, well, maybe we should just get rid of Dame too. Maybe we should just do this and do that and let this guy go. And it's just where we're at. Like, there's no, when you don't have success, you start thinking about all these other branches of reality and possibility, and these things are going to come up. Dame's name is going to come up. He's going to continue to deny that he's requesting the trade, but that's not something that you can get mad at a content creator, especially one as big as Blazers Edge, for really picking up on where all these media guys are talking about outside of Portland and beyond about trading Dame, and they're just touching on it and going from the other side to say that. And we focus on being real talk on this place, right? This particular podcast. And I think I can respect that you talk about the realistic possibility that a Dame trade is not completely unheard of. I don't think it'll happen. I don't want it to happen, but it's there. And they were giving the sides of, if it were to happen, here's why you would see it happen. And that makes sense to me.
Well, and look, everybody's just really angry right now at what's going on. They're angry. Some people are angry because we've traded CJ. Some people are angry because Stotts was let go. Some people are angry because of the tumultuous offseason the Blazers had around hiring Chauncey. There's just all these things that the fan base is upset about, but I don't think that going on Twitter and being negative is going to solve any problems. The other thing I've been pushing back on really hard the last 2 weeks is, look, you and I have said for years, as soon as CJ gets traded to a team where he is the alpha guard, he's going to score 26 points. He's going to get 6 rebounds and probably like 6-7 assists per game. And if you look at his numbers right now, his shooting percentages are a little spotty at times, but the dude is consistent every night for them. He's been dropping a really solid 26, 25 to maybe 30, 32 points. He's been a veteran leader for a team that desperately needed to be stabilized. And I've been really excited and happy for him. I don't understand any Blazer fan who's not excited that CJ is playing good ball and potentially, other than don't lead them to the playoffs, we need that pick. But I mean, what do you think of that? That's something we've been talking about for years.
Duh. I mean, of course, the whole trade CJ thing, at least for us on this particular show, was never about him not being good. It was about his fit with Dame specifically, and that they just weren't a good fit. He always has to take a backseat to Dame because Dame's the leader of the team. He's the point guard. He's gonna have the ball in his hands at all times. And quite frankly, both of them together just as a defensive liability at point of attack. They get destroyed. And he's still not a good defender. I don't care what anybody says. He's not a good defender. Again, I don't know how many times I got to bring up Austin Rivers and Monty Morris that can let Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan against him. But we knew that I was hoping it would be in the East, granted, but it is what it is. We knew if he went to a team that needed a guard, that didn't have that competition from the guard position, that he was going to be an all-star. I mean, put up all-star numbers at least. And if he continues to do this next year and the Pelicans are right there in the playoff hunt, I guarantee you he will make his first all-star, and I'll be one of the first people to buy his all-star uniform. No, I won't buy an all-star jersey, but I will be right there rooting him on in the all-star game, him and Dame, because Dame will be back, and it'll be really cool to see him get in an all-star game together. It's going to happen. Mark it down on this show because that's what we do. We just predict the future. And but yeah, I mean, this is, I've heard people come out. Dwight James has been on a roll on the Twitters. If anybody follows us on Twitter, that guy's been on it just a something. But I mean, he continues to say, "Oh, well, see how good CJ is. We should have kept CJ." Oh, I was like, "Oh, you all hated on CJ. Look at him now." I'm like, "Yeah, of course," but it doesn't mean he was a good fit for Portland.
Well, and so it frustrates me because, look, the NBA is probably like the number one stat-based. People look at it and they go, wow, CJ scoring 26 points and 6 rebounds and 6 assists. That's amazing. Those are such good stats. And they don't watch him night in and night out. And they don't understand that he needs to be flocked by 3 really good defenders for 3 through 4 to cover up mistakes, or you need a Rudy Gobert or something. And that's the thing with Dame. Hopefully we see that improve next year. I don't feel like this year's given us any baseline for that, because from the moment we traded CJ, it's been tank, or Dame's been injured or whatever it may be. And it's sad that we didn't get to see those two make a deeper run into the finals. But I hope CJ does really well. I hope this Pelicans team The Zion stuff is still real weird. I don't think he's going to play this year. I don't know what's going to happen with
I
him
don't
in the
think so.
offseason. My demand is way out, but Brandon Ingram is a certified stud. That guy's so good.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy I would have hoped you got back for the CJ
Maybe
trade.
2 years ago. We called that 2 years ago. We were asking for him.
Yeah, we were all over that. Nobody listens to us. That's all right. One
Yeah.
day,
One day.
they'll reach out to us. Well, now that Cronin's the GM, he'll let us know. He'll let us on. But no, for real, it's it's just one of those situations where you had to move one of them and see what was going to happen. But it's not like CJ was ever a bad player, and I'm stoked for him. I don't know why people are upset. Like they thought we made the wrong call as a team or whatever. This team, we saw what this team was with him and Dame, and you're not. I'm sorry, no offense to CJ, but you're not choosing him over Damian Lillard. You're just not doing it.
No.
You can make all the statistical arguments, this and that, compare the two all freaking day. You're just not going to do it.
And just the clutchness. I get CJ had a couple good games, especially 2019 season, but you just look at the things Damian Lillard has done to elevate this franchise. He's just the epitome of Portland. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So
cool, man.
All right. Well, all that being said, we've obviously the last couple of weeks since the All-Star break, before the All-Star, but really since the CJ trade, I've seen a lot of moving pieces on this team. We've seen a lot of guys, young guys, get a lot of minutes that just they would never have gotten if it wasn't for everything going on.
Yeah.
I would say 70% of these guys aren't even on the team next year. And if they are, they're playing in ridiculously small minutes, garbage time and injuries and things like that. But they're there now. They're there now and they're playing. There's one guy in particular to me who the last couple of games has really stood out. And I don't know about you, but I am ready to just I've changed my mind just talking about it right now. Goodbye, Damian Lillard. Goodbye, Anthony Simons.
Yeah, trade them.
Yep, trade them both.
Sign and trade them.
Yep. We have Brandon freaking Williams on this team, and I don't think he's going to cost $3 million a year. Think of the stars you can surround him with. Let's go.
Yeah. I didn't know a lot about Brandon Williams, and I don't know if you did either until he signed the 10-day.
The G League because of Dia.
Yeah. And you know what? Hey, look, one of the great things about a season like this and a season like OKC has had for the last couple of years, you get to try out the Moses Browns of the world, and you get to try out Brandon Williams and Drew Eubanks, and you can see what they can do. And I think Brandon Williams I saw the Blazers Edge article and was kind of reading a little bit and also watching clips of him. Marlo Ferguson for Blazers Edge wrote a really good article and had some really good clips. Brandon Williams can score in bunches, and he's only 6'2", but the way that his physicality and the way he gets to the rim, draws fouls, it's really interesting for a guy his size to be that physical and to take on. And then he also has a pretty nasty little step back three. Interesting. I don't know that his future is with the Blazers because small guards is not really something we
not
need
the
right
Blazers method. Yeah.
It is our method, but it's the method we should be moving away from. So, but gosh, that he is pretty nasty. I'll give him that for a guy who's really young, coming up through the ranks. He's going to land somewhere.
Yeah. And the thing that's impressed me most about him when you watch him play is it's not a lot of threes. He only attempts a couple threes a game. He really only hits one or two. A lot of his damage comes from attacking the rim. If you watch him, the guy can finish at the rim better than probably anybody else you have on the team. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I agree.
It's hard to find a guy on the team that you say, oh, this guy's come way better than Brandon Williams. I mean, his ability to attack has been so fun to watch the last two games. 21 and I think 27 or 28 points his last game. But I mean,
teach that.
No, it's just, and that's something that with time and experience gets better. I would love to have him back as a bench player. I mean, maybe not your full-on backup number two guard. God, I broke myself. The number two point guard on the team. But I don't know, that was terrible.
That's okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think if you have him as your third point guard and a guy that you can just bring in if there's injuries or you really just need some scoring, or if you get your second guy happens to be more of a shooting guard and point guard's kind of then I think you absolutely make that decision, and you can definitely bring him back. He knows the system. He knows Chauncey. He's been playing with the players that are here already. I'm all for bringing him back. I actually think the last couple of games, to me, has earned him the right to compete for a backup guard position on this team going forward. And the price tag is going to be about as small as it can be, which is, again, going to be something that this team has to rely on because we're not going to have as much money as people think. So
You should at least sign him for the rest of this year, get him on a
yeah,
small deal, and then try to use him in a trade package. That is at the bare minimum. You control his stuff right now. You tell him we're going to give him minutes for the rest of the next 6 weeks of the season, and you try to feature him up and get him some stats that he can be lured into a trade. Because I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's things about his game that you cannot teach, and for someone that is willing to learn and gets that experience, I think he could be very valuable. I just wish the Blazers needed a small guard. I swear to God, it's like every year we have 5 small guards and we don't know what to do with any of them. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. has been a baller this year. He's not a small guard, but he is someone we didn't feature enough and didn't have the ability to feature enough. And Anthony Simons is the 38 Anthony Simons dropped on against the Timberwolves. The Blazers had to bench him because they were like, we're going to win too many games with this guy. We got to get him out of here. So he's got some Achilles tendinopathy or something now, some magical injury.
Yeah, he's definitely at. I don't know what's going on with that. The tank is on for sure. I don't even think Nurk is hurt. I think he's just like, hey man,
Yeah.
you're doing too good. We gotta chill. Your foot,
Yeah.
you have this foot thing now. Sorry, bud.
Plantar
Well,
fasciitis.
speaking of somebody who missed one game since we did our last pod due to rest because of the crazy schedule that we've had. It was really not been playing super hot. Who we were pretty hot on, ironically, a couple weeks ago. But Josh Hart's play has been a little meh. Yeah, he's been a little iffy considering he's got to be that second guy up. He's actually, since he started and had all those 20-point games, he's only, I think, got maybe 10, 12 points a game, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. He doesn't look like himself. Any thoughts on that? And I would know because I have him in my fantasy basketball team and I'm debating dropping him for playoffs.
I think it's partly the tank. I think it's partly that he's not. Look, Josh Hart played great in those 4 games when we were actually going right for it, right? He played really
Streak,
well.
Yeah.
And I think that when he's on an energetic team and he's contributing a lot, I think it's really fun. But the deal with Josh Hart is right now the Blazers are tanking. He knows that they're going to retain him probably through next year or be in a trade. So I think that there's just not a lot of motivation right now. And I think that that motivation is permeating through the coaching staff. I think it's permeating through some of the players. Now the young guys are getting their shine, but I think Josh Hart's a vet on a tanking team. I totally get it.
Good. That's exactly what my mindset was as well. I really think it has to do a lot with I think they know they're done. I think when Nurk was there playing great and Anthony was playing great, and it's your first couple games on the new team, you're trying to make an impression and you win 4 in a row. Everybody's just riding high, and then boom, we go into the All-Star break, and you come out of that.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not there. Like, you're done with no Nurk and Anthony missing time. I think especially as a vet guy, who, I mean, his game basically is based on all emotion, right? He feeds into that and he gets into the grittiness. He's that dog type of player who gets in your face. When you're not having that and you don't feel that energy, it's really hard to play good. Mm-hmm. So just curious. I mean, there's a lot of people that were already starting the badmouth. It is so fun to me how the fan base of this particular team, and really just, I'm sure a lot of teams, I mean, I'm not involved in their fan bases, but it's just how up and down we go. You ride those highs, and you're just, when the lows are there, it's just like, oh well, Josh Hart, we were wrong about him, which we definitely shouldn't keep his contract. We got to get rid of him now. And I made the joke about Brandon Williams replacing Ant and Dame, and it's like there are people that probably legitimately think that this guy's the next like Anthony. Yeah. I saw a tweet where somebody said, well, we can afford to let Ant go. We have a really good guard in Brandon Williams. He's going to cost so much less, and blah blah blah. It's like, pump the brakes just a tad bit, my dear fandom. Pump the brakes.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of checking the standings here. I want to show you this. So we need the Pelicans to not make the playoffs. So that's 8 and up. In order for that to happen, we'd get their pick. It would convey to us, as long as it's not a top 4 pick. But the Blazers are doing a good job of tanking right now. We've lost 5 in a row. And I honestly think this is the right strategy. Try to get 2 first-round picks. I don't think you're going to do any damage in a play-in, and you really need – Brandon Ingram's out for 7 to 10 days, which is awesome because the Pelicans need to miss the playoffs. We need it.
Yeah, so I want to break this down a little bit. Before I get into that, I want to go ahead and take our halftime show. We have a special guest for our halftime show.
Oh.
It's not really a special guest per se, but it is the Blazing New Trails ex-Blazer of the show, Got to really change that up. Blazer of the week just had such a good ring to it. But Blazer of the show, we talked about him last week. And this is gonna be real quick. I don't have a lot to say on this because it's not really news. I mean, it's just more of an update in case people actually didn't know. But the second best Blazer of all time, Clyde Drexler. He's our Blazing New Trails ex-player of the week. There he is. Look at the shorts. Oh,
so nice.
And how shiny their muscles were back then.
Yeah,
but he is, just in case anyone was wondering what he was up to. I know we've had a lot of talk about him. Everybody knows he's heavily involved in the Houston world with their fans. Screw you. We're cooler. But he's down there. He's also the commissioner of the Big Three. We've brought them up quite a few times. Talking about Greg Oden. He's the captain of the Aliens on the Big Three, and there's been a couple other Blazers that have trickled down into there. Some ex-Blazers. You see a lot of cool guys still doing their thing in the Big Three, but he is the commissioner, so that's what he's up to these days. He's running a separate basketball league. It's all 3-on-3, I believe, with a lot of vets and just different guys that aren't in the NBA, and it's actually kind of fun to watch. If you want to know what Greg Oden is doing, go watch Greg Oden highlights. The dude still plays basketball, and he dominates, and it's really fun. I mean, dominates, quotations, but it's still pretty exciting stuff. So that's what Clyde's doing these days, while Damian Lillard is just battling off rumors left and right, trying to bring the Blazers a championship that Clyde couldn't deliver.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I'm going to get so many Clyde people mad at me, but whatever.
Probably.
It's all Dwight Jane's fault. So that's the Blazers New Trails player. I want to do that, but that's a segue because I really feel like we're going to get into this next bit, and it's going to be a decent amount of time to talk over a lot of stuff. So you had the standings up here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we have to go too deep. I just think basically like we need the Pelicans. If they're the 10, they are in the quote unquote play in, but they'd still have to win the play in tournament to get into that 8 spot. So I think it's really, it's interesting to watch. CJ's playing well for them, but Brandon Ingram being hurt is going to be killer because Zion's not coming back.
It kind of sucks that we're the team that's right below them. I mean, I would love to see the Spurs catch them and just kind of sneak into that 10th spot.
Or the Kings.
All-star DeJounte Murray. Okay. It's not often you see an all-star on a team that's 12th when, I don't know. This is interesting to me, but yeah, I mean, I think the Timberwolves and the Clippers more or less are going to lock up. I mean, they're going to lock up 7 and 8 for that play-in tournament. I mean, that's a given. They're not. I don't think anybody like the Lakers. They're not going to catch them. 6 games down, and they suck. The Pelicans, I don't think, are making up 7 games. There's only like 20-something games left, if even that many left in the season at this point. But I mean, it comes down to it. I don't know if people understand how the play-in works, but basically 7 and 8 play each other, and 11 and 10 play each other. The winner of 11-10 moves on to play the winner of 7 and 8. The 7 and 8 winner locks up 7. So then it becomes the 8, whoever ends up in that 8th spot versus the winner of 11 and 10. I'm sorry, not 11 and 10. Good grief. 9 and 10. I've been saying 11 and 10, but I meant 9. Blazers are 11th, so I just assume we're always in the playoffs. That changed. So 9 and 10. So the Pelicans could realistically, they're probably going to draw. Let's be real. They're probably going to draw the Lakers if they hold on. I mean, the Spurs and the Kings are there, but now that, Sabonis and stuff, the Kings just can't find a way to win. I don't really understand it. And the Spurs are just still, again, really young. They got a couple guys on the team that are good, but they need that secondary star, that guy to come in there and really make an impact. So it's probably going to end up like this. I imagine that it goes 10, 9, 8, and 7 as is. Timberwolves are on a roll, so I think they're going to lock up that 7th seed. I do think that they can beat the Clippers unless Paul George makes his return in time for the play-in tournament, which rumblings are that he'll be back in time for that. Rumblings are.
Yeah.
That obviously is a big deal because they only need to win the one game. I think the Pelicans can beat the Lakers. You think that's a real possibility? I mean, they'd have to go Lakers and then Clippers probably in order to get in. So both LA teams they'd have to win to get in. I mean, I know the Lakers have been playing bad and all, but when it comes down to it, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and LeBron James in a potential get knocked out of playoff situation, there's no way, right? There's no way LeBron lets them lose in the play-in tournament.
I don't know, man. I mean, the Lakers have been pretty bad. I think they're going overtime right now, but the Lakers have been pretty bad. The experiment hasn't worked. The age
I
is
think
showing quick.
2-8 in their last
I
10.
know. You look at it, but the Pelicans aren't going to do
Mm.
much better. Like you said, the Spurs aren't going to get a lot better, and the Blazers are full out tanking. I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to stand pat. I think you're going to see the Pelicans get the 10 because CJ is good enough. The Lakers are probably going to be in that 9-10 range, and I don't think either one of them are going to beat the 7 or the 8 Clippers or Timberwolves. So I think we're good.
Yeah, I agree. I think look at the Timberwolves are what 8-2. They've just been on fire. Too bad we couldn't make a move for Karl Anthony Towns back in the day.
I
He
know.
was a little disgruntled, but it is what it
Yep.
is. And yeah, the Clippers are 7-3, and that's without Kawhi and Paul George. I mean, Kawhi is probably not playing again this year, but Paul George will be back in time for that, I would think.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it goes 7-8. So fans, chill. We're going to be following it every week. Every podcast we do, we're going to be kind of seeing where things lie until we get into the play-in tournament. CJ and Brandon Ingram. Wouldn't surprise me if they somehow sneak past the Lakers. That's how the Lakers are right now. But I just don't think they're beating the Clippers or Minnesota, whoever happens to win that game.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it though.
Yeah, we'll talk about that
man.
for sure.
Well, I think that's it. Let's keep it short this week.
I don't have too much else to say. Good luck to you in fantasy basketball. I know you're this is the last week of our fantasy basketball league. We're going to follow up with this for fans because yours truly has locked up the 1 seed. So he doesn't have a lot to play for this week. I don't have a lot to play for this week, but you do you not?
Yeah, I need to win and get in, but it's just I don't know. My team has just been all over the place the last month. I have Westbrook on my team, and he's been terrible, and I'm just not very good. But we'll see.
Yeah, he's got to play me. Unfortunately, he's got to beat me to get into 9-cat league. So he's got to probably get at least 5-4 on me. I'm rooting for you. I mean, I'm not going to sit my guys, but I'm rooting for you to pull it off. So we'll let people know how that turns out. That's about it, man. I got anything else? Just kind of a fun short pod. We'll get back at it in about a week, 2 weeks or so, and we start getting into the playoffs. Talk probably more NBA stuff realistically than Blazers stuff. Let's see. Cover a broader range of topics for you guys. But that's all right, everybody. Man. Hope you have a good rest of your night.
We out.
We out.